Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now, Eddie Hearn wants Tyson Fury to abandon any plans to have an interim fight or a small fight and go straight into the fight with Anthony Joshua. And I think that we would probably all echo that, considering Tyson Fury's December 5th date has seemed to have vanished into thin air. So Tyson Fury will next fight in 2021. Anthony Joshua will fight on December 12th, then in 2021 of course. So it does kind of only seem natural that they fight one another in their next respected fights, because they are supposed to be fighting in next year anyway, so no one needs an interim fight unless Anthony Joshua say fights Alexander Usyk because he has to. Then say Tyson Fury has an interim fight just because Anthony Joshua must deal with another mandatory. That probably is the only situation in which Tyson Fury should be looking for an interim fight, because the fight is Anthony Joshua, and if they are supposed to have two fights next year, then getting one fight in spring or maybe before is going to be vital to making these fights happen, especially if they do want to do two of them, which apparently is what they have agreed. A two-fight deal, 50-50 split in the first one, 60-40 in the second one, favouring the winner. Now obviously, considering this situation with Tyson Fury and his situation with Deontay Wilder, Wilder still wants to get Tyson Fury in the ring, or so he says, so he's going to mediation. Then, if he doesn't get his own way, maybe court proceedings will follow, but ultimately at the moment, Tyson Fury believes he's a free agent to go and fight whoever he wants, because that contract has run down and expired with Deontay Wilder. So if Tyson Fury is able to do what he wants, then he is able to decide if he wants to have a small fight next year or go straight to Anthony Joshua. Now, he was, as I said, supposed to be fighting this year, but they could not get the money together, which is kind of strange because they are making fights such as Daniel Dubois versus Joe Joyce, Anthony Joshua's fighting, Dillian White's fighting, Derek Chisora Usyk, Loma versus Lopez, so these big fights are happening, so why could they not make Tyson Fury fight? I'm guessing it has something to do with the opponent, Caballero, because let's be real, Caballero is not a world beater, and even if he is a fighter who can raise his level to world level, because we don't really know how good he is. We know how good he is because we've seen the level, we've seen him fight fighters such as Derek Chisora and win. Let's be real, a lackluster Derek Chisora, but since then he's not really done anything, so he has a padded 20-0 record essentially, apart from that Chisora fight. So we don't know how good he is. He could raise the level and raise the bar, but ultimately he does not have the profile to warrant a fight with Tyson Fury. So essentially it's not a fight that everyone is rushing to see, Tyson Fury versus Caballero, because it's not really an interesting fight. What is the dynamic? Is it two knockout punchers going in together? No, it's not really. Tyson Fury is a boxer, puncher. He's just started to implement this new Kronk style, so is he going to go for the knockout? Is he going to try and box him? Has Caballero got anything that can bother Tyson Fury? Probably not. So I think that even those behind the scenes probably didn't have their hearts in making this fight, and that is why it just hasn't happened, because no one was really interested in that fight. I agree, I wasn't interested in Tyson Fury versus Caballero. I was interested in Tyson Fury versus Michael Hunter, Tyson Fury versus Oscar Rivas, even Dillian White, because obviously the situation that Dillian White suffered with losing his opponent. So those were fights that I was interested in, but the problem is, again, with Michael Hunter, with Oscar Rivas, is the profile of those fighters. Can they sell a pay-per-view for Tyson Fury versus Michael Hunter? For fans of boxing, yes, but for casual fans that they would hope to bring in? No, probably not. So that is the worry when Tyson Fury fights someone who doesn't have the profile to match his. And let's be real, we weren't really interested in Tyson Fury versus Caballero. I think it was cool that he was going to come back to the UK. That was a nice touch, but there was some reason why this fight didn't happen, and that reason is because they could not put the money together to make it happen behind closed doors. So the risk was probably too high on pay-per-views. They don't believe they can get enough pay-per-view numbers to warrant paying for this fight, so that is why it has not happened. And Tyson Fury will now look forwards to 2021 to get his next fight. And it should be Anthony Joshua, because there is no interim fight other than Deontay Wilder. If Wilder finds some way in which to force him back into the ring, then yes, it will be Deontay Wilder. But other than that, there is no interim fight. There is no mandatory. There is nothing for Tyson Fury other than Anthony Joshua at the moment. And I think that Tyson Fury's promoters, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, have gone as far as saying that it will either be Deontay Wilder next or Anthony Joshua. Wilder in the event that he manages to get Tyson Fury back in the ring due to the contract, or if Anthony Joshua loses to Kubrat Pulev, then it will be Tyson Fury Wilder. Whereas if Anthony Joshua beats Kubrat Pulev, then apparently it will be Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury next. Now, of course, the important thing at the moment is Anthony Joshua gets through Kubrat Pulev, because that seems to be the only stumbling block at the moment, other than Alexander Usyk. Obviously, Usyk is going to be a problem or difficult situation for Anthony Joshua. He must find a way to go beyond that WBO mandatory slot that Usyk has. Whether he fights him, whether he finds a way to get an exception, or whether he even vacates. I don't think that is what Anthony Joshua wants to do. I don't think he wants to vacate that title because he wants that Tyson Fury fight to be undisputed. But what he does also want is that WBC World Championship, because that is a belt that he wants to win. So does he drop a belt to gain a belt, or does he find a way to get around this WBO mandatory? He's done it before. He had a WBA mandatory, which was Alexander Povetkin. He got an exception to fight Joseph Parker for that WBO world title. So that was obviously with the WBA, but there should be some way in which he can ask for an exception, because that didn't happen last time. He didn't have an exception to fight Kubrat Pulev. Usyk agreed to fight Derek Chisora in the interim. So maybe there is some way they can make that fight happen. But still, I would guess that the mandatory will be forced by the WBO. Whether they go to Usyk again and say, give him some step aside money, or ask him to wait. They will vacate the belt straight after the first fight. Then the first one will be for undisputed. The second one will not be, between Anthony Joshua and Fury. So there are many ways in which Anthony Joshua can try and get around it. Whether they work or not, we don't know. There are going to be chances where Anthony Joshua can fight Tyson Fury. It's just whether they get all of the belts on the line for that fight. I hope they can, because it would be good if it was undisputed. But I guess if the fight happens, it doesn't really matter what belts are on the line. The main thing is the fight happens. Just having it for undisputed does make it a little bit better, but still, it's still Tyson Fury versus AJ. A mega fight. Two British heavyweight world champions coming together to see who is number one in boxing. That is why it should be for undisputed. That is why all of the belts should be on the line, because it will be for number one in the heavyweight division. So effectively, if that WBO belt does become vacant and then Daniel Dubois and Alexander Usyk fight for that vacant title, then, I mean, there's a WBO world champion, but there clearly is one number one heavyweight in the world, but they won't have all of the belts. That's the only sticking point in that situation, but still, we know who is number one. Let's just hope they are able to secure all of the belts on the line for that fight. Anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. Thanks, guys.